And yet, I ask you, is not an alien force already among us?
Hi, and welcome back to another edition of Against the Grain. Now, we're going to do something different. Because of all the recent sort of sightings of UAPs or drones or whatever people are calling them over US bases in the UK and all over New Jersey, which has sort of exploded all over the internet and also exploded on mainstream media finally, I thought I would bring on a very dear friend of mine, John, who I've known for over 20 years. He's followed my research with regards to the crop circles. And when I was living in Mexico, I showed him some footage of these strange objects flying into a volcano, which we have a live cam there for, called Popocatépetl. And that footage got John hooked. So from then, he's now far more advanced with UFOs and UAPs and the subject than I am. I thought it would be a great thing if we did a show sort of every now and again and just got an update on everything that's going on UAP wise, and John and I can chew the cud, show some footage of what's happening with the news and so on, and speculate and spitball about what we think's going on. So let me introduce my dear friend John. John, how you doing, buddy?
Oh, hi Gary, great to see you.
What's going on?
What's going on? You tell me.
Wow, we've been talking for the last God knows how long over all of this stuff, and then it's exploded, hasn't it? But let's go back to Popocatépetl first, because I've got footage of what I sent to you when I was living in Mexico, and that's what got you hooked, isn't it? Tell us about that. Tell us about that first before I show the footage.
Well, having known Gary for about 23, 24 years, I was very, very familiar with all his research into crop circles. And I was kind of ambivalent at first. It was like, oh, it's a bit strange, and Gary's into this thing. But it wasn't long before he'd showed me enough evidence for me to realize, at the very least, this is a mystery. The precision, the intricacy, the structural engineering, the architecture, the size. And you think, no, true. How on earth can a few blokes with ropes and a board do that in 3 or 4 hours of darkness, which is what we have here in the UK at that time of year? No, this is a mystery. So anyway, I was happy to understand that there was something to seriously look into, that this wasn't just a frivolity. This wasn't just a gimmick. Wow. Anyway, so eventually Gary went off to Mexico to work with a TV program. And then he sent me this video from Mount Popocatépetl, or Polly put the kettle on, as I like to call it, which is a big volcano outside of Mexico City, as far as I know.
It is.
So are you going to show the video, Gary?
I'm going to show the video. Right, hang on. Let's share the screen, and then you have a look at what got you hooked. Let me key it up.
Yeah, that was it. Got me hooked.
Can you see that?
I've got it.
Una historia que se desarrolla frente a nosotros y que está siendo registrada por diferentes cámaras y diversos medios. Durante casi 20 años, el equipo de Tercer Milenio ha seguido la investigación en torno a los objetos voladores no identificados que son grabados o fotografiados en torno a los volcanes activos de México, como el Popocatépetl y el volcán de fuego de Colima. El archivo de imágenes
It was these things coming into it, and as far as I remember, possibly leaving it as well.
There are some. There's different. This is sort of like a mix of different.
Yeah, these are stills. There was actual. Oh no, that wasn't a still, was it?
There's some footage.
What the hell is that?
That's the one.
Se han podido registrar imágenes del mismo tipo de ovnis cerca del volcán, aparentemente introduciéndose a él. Octubre 25 del 2012, tanto la cámara de Televisa como la del CENAPRED, Centro Nacional de Prevención de Desastres, grabaron a un...
This is what happened. There was that volcano is active. And there's a live cam. As you know, I work for Jaime Maussan at Tercer Milenio, which is it means the third millennium. And we had a live cam at the volcano because there's always activity of UFOs there. And we had a big screen in the studio that was always on with the volcano on it. I think I showed it to you.
And the university or the seismological society,
They have one too.
They had a live cam as well.
So it's verified by different cameras that are monitored by different people. This is the thing. And I first got to hear about it, God, back in like 2008 or 9 or something, when I first started working for Jaime. He sent me this video and said there was a volcano that was about to erupt. They were evacuating the town, and then that thing that you just saw, that one where you got that oblong that just flies into it, stopped the volcano erupting.
Oh, did it?
Yeah, it stopped the volcano erupting. Well, the volcano didn't erupt after that thing went in. So whether, I'm drawing a causal link between that thing.
Maybe it's a big block of ice.
It's a big, someone dropped an ice cube in it from above. Yeah, exactly. But yeah, they were about to evacuate the town, and then they didn't have to evacuate the town because the volcano stopped erupting.
Wow, no, I didn't know that story.
Yeah. So then when, obviously when I got to Mexico and I worked there, we should see it every day. We'd see this camera up there and it'd be just looking at the volcano. It was like a regular feature on the wall. But the journalist that you heard there, his name's Carlos Clemente. It was his job to come in the morning, download the live cam footage and quickly scan through it and see if there was anything in the night that we'd caught, because it was mostly at night. Although, as you saw from some of the images there, it's also in the day. That these balls of light, sometimes there's more of them, these objects, orbs, UAPs, UFOs, all these bloody acronyms that people want to call them these days, flying around there regularly. Now, I sent you that footage. Take us from there. What happened? Because that's what got you hooked, isn't it?
Yeah, I was absolutely amazed about that stuff, especially because there was 2 sets of cameras. There was your paranormal TV program, but there was the scientific thing going on, and these 2 cameras, and in the videos I remember seeing, they were showing both. I think one had infrared and the other one didn't, or something. There was a slight difference.
Yeah.
But this was just constant stuff coming in and out. It wasn't like it was just the stuff exploding from the volcano. These were things coming in. Now, that would have been earlier on during lockdown.
Yeah.
We ended up seeing an awful lot of stuff during lockdown, and that I don't know if it led me, but segued into watching Graham Hancock and Randall Carlson discussing ancient civilizations and the possibilities of our human history being lost and whatever. And the incredible feats that the ancients have done in terms of precision carving, in terms of moving monstrous blocks. And I've always loved archaeology as a kid. And I wish I knew everything now. I want answers now. Give me answers. So I suppose lockdown exposed me to a lot of stuff on the telly. And honestly, one thing led into another until somehow I saw the Ross Coulthard David Brush interview prior to the congressional hearings in I think it was something like the 16th of July last year, 23. His revelations certainly blew me away, and I ended up down the rabbit hole. And within a space of about a month, I must have come across every personality who I'd never heard of, starting with Jacques Vallée, then going into your George Knapps and Corbells, then into these.
I'm so impressed to hear you reel off all these names.
Hal Puthoff, Tim Taylor.
I've never even heard of Tim Taylor. Who's Tim Taylor?
Whoa, Tim Taylor is one of the guys that knows something. Tim Taylor took what's her name, Pasulka, the theologian, and Dr. Gary Nolan, to Roswell or Area 50
Okay.
thingy, and apparently came back with some item that they then
Okay.
had to get to the airport. There's a whole, and that was not so many years ago.
Okay.
Tim Taylor, who in a book is referred to as Tyler, I think, is one of these guys. So anyway, so within a period of Stephen Greer, Bob Lazar, Michael Saller, if that's his name.
Michael Saller. I know Michael. I spoke at a conference with Michael. Yeah.
I learned all about Robert Salas and the Maelstrom Air Base thing.
I'm dear friends with Robert Salas as well. So yeah,
saturated with all the names, the personalities, the events. I can tell you about that thing that happened in Nuremberg in 1561.
I mean, this is why I thought this would be great for us to do this, because in a short space of time, you've become, to me, you tell me what's going on in this world now with regards, because I'm not a ufologist, as most people know. I work with these people. I work for Army. I know a lot of them because we speak at conferences, but I don't keep up to date with it as much as as people like yourself do, because I'm a crop circle guy.
Well,
so this is why,
as I said to you, you're the crop circle expert. I'll deal with the rest. I also saw a program on the TV not so long ago, which was again to do with extraterrestrial life, possibility of aliens, but it brought crop circles into it. And I don't know what it was about the scripting or the words or the presentation, but it just linked everything in a way that I hadn't felt before. And I'd always said to you years ago, and you used to use me for my objectivity and my more down-to-earth approach, and I would hold you back from saying things that were coming from your heart and not your brain.
Which is why at the end, I don't know if people have noticed, but at the end of my shows, my podcast, it says consigliere, which I use my dear friend Professor Michael Glickman's term, counsellor. The mafia had a counsellor. The Don would always have a counsellor. The consigliere. So at the end of the credits, it goes to you as consigliere.
Oh, Gary.
Because you're my consigliere.
I'm touched. but I do find that relationship that me and you had, especially in those early days of analysing and monitoring what you would say, because I say, hold on a minute, you can't say that. That's your desire, your speculation, your thought. The classic, and I hope you don't mind if I say
no,
that.
you would always say, like, for example, you'd pull me up and say, if I say, oh, a new crop circle's come down, you go, oh, can you say come down?
We don't know if it's come down, because that implies, if you like, aliens, extraterrestrials.
Absolutely.
Say appeared. There's one appeared, and it's in great mystery.
Yeah. But
we've got to be objective, as scientific as possible, etc., etc. So as I say, within a short space of time, I discovered this world, which, I mean, obviously I knew for years, UFOs, aliens, films, abductions, but I hadn't really paid it much attention until this last 2 years now. And I'm I wish I wasn't so obsessed with it, because it's frustrating as hell. And the one thing that is obvious, that has got nothing to do with physics or aliens or consciousness or mystic, is the lies and deception by the bastard people who run this planet. I've always been a skeptic and a cynic when it comes to governments. I refer to them as rulers.
Yeah.
In the West, after, say, the example, the French Revolution, they had to change things. The monarchy was scared. They had to change things. And so we had this thing called democracy introduced to keep the people off their backs.
Yep.
But basically, they are still rulers.
Yes.
And the lust for power, money, their greed, selfishness. This is why people talk about these people worship Satan.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't believe in a Satan entity at all.
No.
But I can understand why people are prepared to describe all of these power-hungry lunatics as, if you like, Satanists and blah blah blah. Maybe they do, maybe they don't. It's not a subject I'm really interested in. But the lies and deception by the very people who tax us to death
for no reason, because they could just bloody print money when they want to anyway.
I think once I realised there was a real likelihood of a crash retrieval program, etc., the best way is to follow the money.
Yes.
Is to use ordinary evidence. I've turned Carl Sagan's expression, extraordinary claims requires extraordinary evidence. I've turned that on its back. I don't like it. Extraordinary claims require evidence. Full stop. It doesn't need to be extraordinary.
No.
Follow the money, see who's hiding the truths, and that's how you'll get to the bottom of it. That, if you like, institutionalized level.
Well, I've always said with the crop circles that I've said this for years. I have not demanded. It says extraordinary evidence. Claims require extraordinary evidence. I just want ordinary evidence. These people who
that's
claim
all it needs.
Just go out into the fields at night in 4 hours and make the Milk Hill Galaxy Spiral. Make 777 for me in the dark where no one can detect you, and that's ordinary evidence, and I'll believe it.
Yes, because extraordinary evidence doesn't sound like evidence. It sounds like something made up.
It's a good phrase, but when you analyse it, it doesn't actually make any sense.
It's like saying everything is everything. Well, thank God for that, because if it wasn't, I don't know where we'd be.
Oh God, you know what, that phrase? I had a guy come round recently. He's a guy that fixes the roof here on my place, and we sat there and had a chat. And he said, "Well, my theory is that everything is everything." And I pulled him up on it, and he got quite upset. And I was going, "What's it?"
I mean, of course it is. Everything is everything,
but that's not.
But just like saying water is water. You know, my finger is my finger. I think, therefore I am. I don't know.
It's so true. It's so true. Anyway.
So language is all we have. And we have to learn to be as unambiguous as possible.
I agree. And so, as you know, I'm reading, one of my heroes who I hope to get on the show is this guy, Jeffrey Kripow.
Yes, you've been talking to about him a lot.
How to Think Impossibly. Shout out to this book. Everybody should start reading it because it's so cool. What he's proposing is that we've quite rightly, in some ways, gone for the hard sciences, you know, objective empiricism, and it's very valuable and it's very good in providing us with evidence and data that we need to learn stuff, right? But our over-reliance on that has made us negate all the subjective humanities that the other sciences that are not so material and tangible, and just negate them. So anybody's experience is just anecdotal. Even if you've got 1 million people that say they saw something in the sky, they're all hallucinating, and it can all be dismissed as, you know, a coincidence or something.
Yeah, it's very odd how intelligent people, scientists, researchers, or just my mate Steve, as you know very well, are able to completely compartmentalize the material from the other.
Yeah.
And as you know, I've come up with some great insights over the last 2 years because of my research.
Yes.
You know, in all those libraries that I've been going to in universities, otherwise known as the Library of YouTube. University of YouTube and Google. You know, good credit to it all. I wouldn't have known anything, and I'm not a nutter.
No.
I mean, I can be funny, but I'm not a nutter. I don't even like the phrase conspiracy theory. These days, it's got the word conspiracy and conspiracy theory. The phrase have got all tangled up together, and people don't even understand. And as I've been trying to explain, when Guy Fawkes wanted to blow up the House of Parliament, that was a conspiracy. When the banks want to stitch up something, or the stock exchange, or VW with their diesel scam, that is a conspiracy. It does not make it wrong. It does not make it a lunatic theory. It's what happened, and that's the word conspiracy. So I'm not a loony when it comes to these things, but there's too much evidence around, and like you say, we've separated the material from the other in a way which is foolish, because I think as humans, there's always been mystery in life.
Well, that's what
Mystery,
Krypel talks about. He's a professor of, he goes
magic.
way back, absolutely, and different ways of explaining it.
Yeah, so everything that we would call spiritual, shamanic, insight, psychic, the whole paranormal and supernatural, in my opinion, is another part of life that exists. Some of us, not me particularly, feel it. Other people feel it more and are psychic, have insights, communicate with spirits, what have you. I don't see why it needs to be dismissed. If humans have been doing this ever since, well, then it's surely worth acknowledgement at the very least, study certainly.
Well, this is the case. This is the case that Krypel makes. This is his the crux of his sort of of his argument is that we need to bring back in some way of addressing and balancing the hard scientific objective data with the less tangible
balance, yin and yang. I mean,
exactly.
Why wouldn't we? Why wouldn't we? In the same way, why wouldn't my good friend who introduced me to science fiction, loves Doctor Who, loves Star Trek to the point that you can't even make a Star Trek joke, and has no interest in this subject? But
is that it? Is it because? I mean, I'm spitballing, but I often wondered, like, because that stuff's been relegated to the sort of realms of fantasy TV and not real and just made up stuff that it's not taken seriously. You can't take it seriously. Right. People don't want to take it seriously.
Right, possibly. But he's not stupid.
I know, but then what about the fact that we when we looked at Star Trek back in the 60s and they had this little device where they could beam, they could.
I'm still waiting for one.
Well, no, not the beaming up thing. The thing where the thing that we're doing right now, where you talk to each other face to face over the internet.
Yes.
That was in the 60s on Star Trek, and we go, well, imagine if we had one of them. We go, tiggly, and they can see his face and talk to him on his ship.
It's life, Jim, but not as we know it.
Science fiction writers have actually said that they're scared now to use their imagination to come up with... Because it comes true.
I can believe it. I had to tell my mate recently, I said, all those hundreds of science fiction books you lent me and I read? I said, well, guess what? They're all true.
They're all true. They're all true.
Even then, I was astonished at the clarity that many of those stories have, because they often seem to be satires of what we as humans do. So they might be set in a futuristic way. And the comedy ones, particularly like the Hitchhiker's Guide and stuff, had all of the futuristic and the science in there, but in a way that was very human and was taking the piss out of humanity. And I think that is the quality of good science fiction, because it's a reflection on us.
Absolutely.
What we are able to imagine is what we can do, and the machinations of humans is...
And that's it. You see, and that's where Krypel again, come back to him again, the imaginal. And we talk about Henry Corbin and Henri Corbin and his work on the imaginal realm. What Krypel says in a nutshell is that these phenomenon, whether they're trolls, elves, fairies, UFOs, they come through a cultural filter of the imagination, the imaginal filter. And so they present themselves to us in a way that our imagination can cope with. Well, the science fiction stuff that we've all been exposed to, my teacher made the correlation and said, as soon as Arthur C. Clarke started publishing stuff about UFOs, people started seeing them. People started having the imagination. Is there a connection? I find that very interesting about consciousness.
that is the 50s was the time for all of that. Oh God, I was just about to say something and it's completely gone. For the first time in this chat, I've completely forgotten. I've gone blank.
All right, well, let's get on to these recent UFO sightings, shall we?
Yeah.
I did a podcast 10 days ago. Steve Bassett, as you know, is not a ufologist in the sense that he's a
lobbyist.
He's a lobbyist, and he registered as a lobbyist something like 40 years ago to make a difference,
lobbying for transparency.
Lobbying for transparency. He wanted the government, because he firmly believes that the government have known about these things or whatever it is for a very long time, and he wants them to and it must be so. Well, it is. I know. I mean, we chatted for 2 hours on the podcast and 2 hours afterwards. He's thrilled at the moment because his life's work feels like it's
coming to fruition.
Yeah, he's sitting in Congress and he talked to Nancy Mason. He put Robert Salas in front of Nancy Mason and said, "Look, this man."
I know, I saw that. Yeah,
right. And so he's so thrilled that Nancy Mason is going to interview, hopefully, Robert Salas and get testimony, which from a very, very.
I wonder, why couldn't they have brought him into that particular hearing? If they managed to have an interview with him.
He was there. He sat there.
He was there. So why wasn't he a witness?
Well, this is it.
We don't understand any of their workings because they had a plethora of people they could have brought in. And if he was actually there in the hearing,
he was there.
Why the fuck didn't they bring?
And the thing is, he's 84 and he queued for hours and hours and hours and hours to get in there. And all the people pushed in the queue and nearly never got him in there. Go on.
The powers that be, the gatekeepers, as I've heard them refer to, and it's a very small number of people, I think, because the majority of governments, staff in governments, don't know anything about this.
No.
The president often doesn't know anything about this, despite what they've said, that the CIA and whatever, this on a need-to-know basis. These people come and go. They're not here permanently. We don't.
It's like Yes, Prime Minister, our old TV show, isn't it? The Prime Minister comes
very
in.
Much so. So he's the last one to know anything.
He's the last one to know. The permanent secretary and all those sort of people are the ones that.
Yeah. So presumably, even within that hearing, there's stuff they've been allowed to do and stuff they haven't been allowed to do.
Well, you and I have talked about this because I'm frustrated with Lou Elizondo. I'm afraid I'll have to say that to you in a skiff, and I'm not allowed to disclose that.
When even Tim Gallaudet said that, and I was shocked because I was very surprised. I was very surprised that both of them. Louis Elizondo is just becoming creepier and creepier. He's reminding me of my other favorite creepy person. Trust me, bro.
Good. Trust me, bro. You want to see what I've seen?
Trust me, bro.
And you're talking about Corbell now. Let's be clear about it.
So it's if you've got something to say, say it. You guys aren't even in the government. You're not afraid of losing your government pension or something. If you know this other stuff, say it. So,
well, this is where you and I came up with that wonderful phrase, isn't it?
You did what? Edging.
UFO edging. They just bring you right to the point where they go, oh yeah,
right to the point of climax. But no. There's lots of suitable English expressions for this as well.
There is, which is another reason why I really want to do this project with you on this, because we've got Casper Sight, who I think has a wonderful show in the UK, and he's down to earth and he's grounded, and he tries to speculate on what could it be something else, and maybe it's this.
He's just honest.
He's honest. He's an honest guy. But we mostly see God bless them, American people running these kinds of shows, and we don't have enough of it in the UK as far as I'm concerned. And so
I've come across a few more now. There's the UAP Files podcast with the bloke I thought kind of reminded
excellent
me
show.
of you.
Yeah, Karen Alexander was on with him recently. Yeah, good show. yeah.
And I did see one or two people out of the blue. It's like, oh, I don't know these people. I thought I knew them all. Because there's different layers of people involved in this. You've got the scientists and the military people, whether they're whistleblowers or not. You've got the investigative journalists like George Knapp, and we'll stick Corbell in with him as well.
Yeah.
You've got Ross Coulthard. All of these are professional journalists, investigators.
Yeah.
And then everybody else, who I've got so much respect for, Patrick Unvetted, Christian Harloff on the UAP, whatever it's called, and Pavel
in Mexico.
Pavel in Mexico is my absolute top.
He's a good guy. I'd also give a shout
commentator.
out. I'd also give a good shout out to Andy, whose surname I can't remember, who runs that UFO podcast. I've been on his show with Karen. He's a Scottish guy, the ginger Scottish guy. His channel's very, very good. So to get back to what I was saying, I was interviewing Steve Bassett. We were talking particularly about Robert Salas and a guy called Robert Kingston, who wrote the book on the UFOs and the connection with the nuclear bases and the nuclear interference that people have witnessed over the years, or military personnel. And most of our 2-hour show was discussing that issue and where we are right now with regards to the Ukraine conflict and Putin threatening to retaliate with nuclear weapons and possibly shifting us into World War III, etc., etc. And then the following day, there's all these drones. So it was to me a massive coincidence, because we just talked about Robert Salas having that experience of these orbs flying over the nuclear installations, and then the following day we start hearing reports of the US bases here in the UK getting buzzed by these drones. And then since then, we've had 2 weeks or more now, haven't we?
Do you know what? It's longer. I've been checking. The New Jersey stuff started around the 16th of November.
So it was going on then. So that's before.
So it would have been going on at the same time, presumably, as the RAF bases, the American bases in East Anglia,
in the UK,
Anglia, Cambridgeshire. Yeah. Only last week or the week before did this bizarre story of this computer prediction by this guy called Cliff High. Have you not come across they're discussing it?
Okay.
They're discussing it. Back in the 90s, this bloke Cliff High wrote some sort of program that would learn everything that was on the internet in order to make predictions for the stock exchange.
Okay.
No, you've not heard this one?
No.
Oh my God. It gets into the realms of silly, followed by silly, and then suddenly you've got today. So he was doing this thing for the stock exchange, but he got so much information gleaned from the internet, every aspect of everything, that he created some program that could make predictions. Well, this is predictions for the stock exchange. So in 2009, there was a prediction that this year, or at some point, there would be a trigger event. And 39 days after that trigger event would be the start of a war in the skies between different crafts,
right,
plus our military.
Okay.
Now, the trigger event, and this to me is like, where the fuck does this come from? But people have been talking about the trigger event was the Joe Rogan Trump interview, which was now 40-something days ago.
Yeah.
Patrick and Vetted, on the 39th day, they introduced their program as Alien Invasion Day. Blah, blah, blah.
Oh, is this the December the 3rd thing?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
This was the December the 3rd thing. Now, you may wonder, is there already not an alien invasion if these things are? But whatever is going on, there's a massive stuff that's coincidentally going on at this 39-day mark.
And when did they predict this? In the 90s, did you say?
2009, but but
2009.
he started this thing in 97, apparently. It's worth checking out. It's
Okay.
crazy. But one thing I think in all this intense research in the last couple of years, and I hate to say this because it's not what I want. I actually just want a peaceful life. Right? I'd rather there were no aliens. I'd rather we were the only ones in the fucking universe. It's bad enough. It's bad enough as it is. Can you imagine more migration? As South Park said, they're taking our jobs. They're taking our jobs. That was a great episode. If you ever want to have a good laugh, check out the South Park episode of the alien invasion, because they turned out they were people from the future coming back here, working for pennies, right? Undercutting everybody's jobs. But because they were putting it in the bank and they were from the future, by the time they went back home, this thing was all worth a fortune. They're taking our jobs. They're taking our... And it was a piss take about racism and anti-immigration stuff.
Brilliant.
So actually, I don't have any great desire at all. As I say, life is difficult or complicated or wonderful enough as it is. But if there is a massive truth that is being kept from us, as I believe it is, then it's not theirs to keep.
No.
Not something as monumental as this.
No.
As I say, you might have seen over the years videos of what is supposed to be real aliens. Like there was a couple of interviews. They got one in Roswell.
There's one in my introduction, in my little introduction.
Now look, I mean, I don't want to fucking meet one of those. I really don't. But if it's a fact, then it's a fact. And I hate the secrecy. As I've discussed with you before, I reckon that 60, 70 years ago, from the 1930s onwards, the German scientists in particular, the ones they brought into America, I think a new branch of physics was discovered back then.
Well, I mean,
especially on the quantum level, which is akin to magic.
Well, see, I love this stuff because Eric Weinstein said recently that, we could be at a point where string theory gets kicked out because he said it's held us up.
Yeah, I saw that
watched this
now.
Yeah. And we might be on the cusp of getting rid of general relativity and opening our minds to a whole different level of physics. So once we open our minds to that, then we could realize, oh, right, okay, it's that. And that's how things actually change, isn't it? Paradigm shifts. Everything's crazy until the point when you go, oh, well, we can understand it now. So, we can make it real now, even though it was real before, of course. But yes, when the physicists, one of the things for me was, sorry to cut you off there, but one of the things for me was that John Martineau made a film some years ago where we talked about the anthropic principle. And it was when physicists began to realize that the universe is incredibly finely tuned to produce biological life, and not just biological life that can eat and shit and breed, but biological life such as us that can develop a complex language and then ask questions about life itself. And it seems physicists found out it's extremely finely tuned to produce that. And that brings in this whole other branch of physics, which I love, the participatory anthropic principle, which is a mind bender in some ways, but it reconciles quantum physics, because quantum physics violently confronts general relativity in that they don't work together. Time can go backwards with quantum physics, and time's not the fixed thing that we experience in our day-to-day reality and so forth. This is what excites me about all this.
Absolutely, the idea that our knowledge is fixed and finite, and there seems to be scientists and as I say, other people I know who believe that that's it. That,
Oh, it's all sorted. It's all, we've got all the answers. We just, it's a few questions we
the
need to get to
speed
tidy
that
it all up.
You
Yeah,
can't
but
possibly travel faster than the speed of light. Well, how the hell do you know? I don't know. I didn't go to university. These people have degrees in marketing, in politics. Who are they telling me that we can't do X, Y, and Z? I don't bloody know. But why close down possibilities? We're only at the beginning of understanding life itself. DNA
but that's what
was,
brings in one of those conspiracy theories, isn't it? Because when you ask a question like that, well, why would the government close that down and close our minds to it? And then you hear people say, well, they want to keep us dumb so that we go out and work for £10 an hour, you know, and have no money left over and have no imagination and keep the IQs low. And they reel out all of this stuff that, you know, we can see that's real around us, but then making the link between whether that's a deliberate act on behalf of the government for whatever reason is the conspiracy link.
well, it's such a pity then that is interfering in proper understanding, that in all of this vital research, there's a political and governmental level that has possibly operated for a hell of a long time. Yeah, it shouldn't be clashing, but that's what's causing the problem, because there's clearly some aspect to physics or science that exists, but they know about it, whoever they are. I don't even like saying they, but I do have a total and absolute mistrust of the rulers.
Well, you know, well, this is one of the theories, right? So we start playing some clips now of these recent UFO things, these drones, so-called drones. And one of the theories is that we are being exposed to technology the military technology that understands physics in a different way that the government or the military industrial complex, that wonderful phrase, has had. And with these drones, we are seeing stuff now that they've had. And so that's one of the, you know, the cards on the table of possible explanations for what we're seeing flying around in the sky right now that has no explanation in terms of batteries wouldn't last 16 hours to keep these car-sized drones up in the air, and they wouldn't be able to go underwater and defy the laws of gravity as they do, and so on. Or some of them, not all of them. Because some of them, to me, clearly, and that's what I want to start with, actually, some of them clearly, to me, they look like aeroplanes with Christmas lights on them.
They do, yeah.
So
But we have not seen a single picture of them without light, so we can't actually see what they are. And according to the authorities, the mayors, the governors, all these witnesses, they're just lights.
It's just lights.
They haven't seen the actual
object
drone itself.
Right.
We are assuming they're drones because that's the reference point, and you'd think they were drones.
Yeah. Well, some of them you can see are triangular, but
yes,
then that comes back to some of the. Well, it's the same thing, isn't it? It comes out. It's a UFOs.
Until they've captured one and said this is what it is. Why they haven't? What's so difficult to grab one of these? Why are they sending F-16 jets around? What's wrong with a helicopter? Couldn't a helicopter grab one with a net?
Well, I've had a personal experience in Alton Barnes when we did a night watch in 2008 on the 888. 200 people come on the hill, same hill where I'd witnessed the crop circle the year before, and Win Keach had an infrared. He had a bunch of cameras set up, and one of them was infrared, and he was aiming this infrared camera towards Milk Hill and over to the Vale of Pewsey. And this ball of light, people can watch this. It's on the end. It's in episode 3 of the Embrace the Mystery documentary that I made with Roy Loran from Norwegian TV2. This ball of light comes out of the ground. It's like a mist that comes out of the ground, a white ball of light, and then it starts to move off across the Vale of Pewsey, and you see 2 Apache helicopters come into the shot, and then this thing just shoots off.
They must have known it was going to be there. Why would they be there as it comes out the ground?
these are all the questions. I mean, and what instrumentation do they have?
This
Because
the other
Janet
thing.
Janet
Sorry.
Ossabard, one of the researchers, Janet Ossabard, she told me years ago, sadly she's died now, but she told me years ago that she got one of these Apache helicopter pilots drunk. She had very large breasts, and so she could be a little bit seductive, bless her, Janet. So she probably got this guy, sitting down at the bar, a few drinks, and she said to him, like, what do you see through your helicopter equipment when you're flying over? And he apparently, allegedly told her, who knows if it's true, that they can see the imprint of these crop circles days before they appear through their equipment. I don't know if it's true, but maybe I was saying that because on the basis that they might be able to, because there's a clip I'm going to show in a minute that Casper Site shows where there's what looks like an aeroplane, a drone, or whatever it is from this recent sighting, and they've got two cameras. One's infrared and one's ordinary. One's an ordinary camera. It's in daylight, and you can only see it in infrared. You can't see it in the same location in the daylight. Have you seen that?
Not necessarily, but I am hearing that only infrared cameras can pick up some of these images.
Yeah, I'll show you. I've got the clip lined up to watch. Anyway, let's dive into this first clip, which I think this is a plane with Christmas tree lights on. But let's play it and see what you think. Where am I? Share the screen. So check this out. To me, this looks like a plane.
Where we are referring to
Look at this
to
thing.
New York City. As far as the size of them, multiple eyewitnesses have reported it.
What's strange is this here. It's not like your stereotypical plane lighting, right? Yeah, you have like lights on the end of the plane and at the back. Yeah, but this thing at the front, this is just weird.
Obviously, we've seen the video here. You've just pointed it out. The size of these,
Look, it's like
not
it's like the sword in Halo.
quite clear to law enforcement that they
Look at that.
are car-sized at this point, but they do not appear to be kind of the homemade type that would fit on a desk.
So that had green light on one wing and a red light on the other wing. All right, it had a funny light, down the middle that he was pointing out there, but it looked plane-shaped to me. And the first one just looked plane-shaped, and it had a green light and a red light on the end of each wing as well. But it had all these other lights on it. But I think and the reason I chose to bring those clips up first is I think that we're getting so many different reports now that it's all getting a bit confusing with what.
Absolutely. I don't know that those were the best clips to show because there's the New Jersey news reports on their local channels while they're talking to the mayor and the governor, and some of the other ones are showing lots all at once.
Yeah, no, I've got these clips to show you now. So let's check this one, right? This next clip. Let's show you this.
Es como que a veces se ve más, es como que van de un lado para el otro, boludo.
Amigo, están muy cerca, son ovnis seguros.
Here we go.
Claro.
Ovnis asegurados.
¿Por qué? Van a 2 por hora, culiado, nos están filmando,
Qué
boludo.
doctor, la van rapidísimo, amigo.
Oh, that's a mad one. Yeah, that's that huge something. Wasn't there more to it? It's like just tons of lights.
Now these appear and disappear.
Yeah. See, planes don't normally do that kind of thing. When you see a plane, you sort of, it's a plane.
See, look, it's vanished. They've vanished. And now watch.
I'm not just behind a cloud.
No, yeah, they'll just come back. You watch. There you go.
Yeah, what is going on?
Yeah, I did see that the other day.
Yeah, that is bizarre, dude.
Yeah. But there's been hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of these over people's homes, over schools, like like annoying people. It's as if it's a campaign to irritate people.
Well, apparently they've been following FBI agents home that are investigating them.
I did hear that, but I haven't heard any verification of that since. The
trouble is the FBI are not going to, they've probably got their boss said to them, don't you go on the news and tell people that's been bloody.
I like the sound.
It's a great
of that,
story.
But
it's one of those ones where you're never going to get to know.
Yeah, nobody ever went into that further.
No.
Other than for me, what is unique in this particular case is that everyone's on board.
Well, what about the news reporter? That she looked genuinely concerned, didn't she? Did you see the Fox News reporter? That lady.
I totally did. She said it's been outside my house. It's bugging me. I keep looking out the window. It's still there. And she said, I phoned the FAA. They told me to phone the FBI. The FBI told me to phone the Men in Black. The Men in Black told me to. What would we know?
Well, apparently when you phone them now, it's got one of those things that it says, if you've seen a UFO, press 1. If an alien is in your garden, press 2.
Honestly, so you've got ordinary witnesses, of which there are loads, tons, plus seriously concerned policemen.
Yep.
Proper policemen, head of police, wanting answers.
Yep.
The mayor wants answers.
Yep.
The governor wants answers. I do not believe for a minute that the powers that be are so totally ignorant of all of this that they genuinely don't know.
Well, let's listen to the Pentagon spokesman, what he says. This is where we're talking about. Let's just
talking crap.
I mean,
General Ryder, there have been a number of incidents in England with drones targeting U.S. bases, kind of swarming U.S. bases, challenging security. Do you believe they have hostile intent? Do you believe they were sent by a foreign adversary? What is happening what can you tell us about these drones?
What I would tell you, Jennifer, is that they are being actively monitored. Installation leaders have determined so far that none of these incursions impact the base residents, the facilities, or the assets that we have on those bases. We're, of course, continuing to work with host nation authorities and our mission partners to ensure the safety of our personnel, our facilities, and the equipment. The bottom line is it's something that we're going to take seriously. We're continuing to look into it, but as of right now has not had any significant mission impact.
It's something we're going to take seriously, but as of now, it hasn't had any serious mission impact. We're continuing to monitor it.
Well, he is lying his backside off for the sake of looking official and justifying wearing that uniform.
Well, he's got all that gear on, hasn't he?
That uniform and all those flipping colours he's got on his chest there. You know, he is. We can actually see his face, but in other respects, he would be just a faceless bureaucrat. That's putting it nicely, isn't he? He's a bureaucrat. I don't envy him.
No.
He's got to say crap and make it sound believable.
Well, they all seem to get their put up there. And it's the same.
They're not saying anything.
They're not saying anything.
Nothing at all. Now, that's, I suppose, a skill, a politician's skill.
Well, that's what I think they have a special school for it, don't they? We're going to send you to school.
There and you smile at your flipping electorate and you don't say nothing for 10 minutes.
Yeah, lie with impunity.
No.
Nothing to see here.
No.
Right. So listen to what the journalist says next to him.
Why not shoot them down?
Well, I won't get into force protection measures. We, of course, always maintain the right to defend ourselves if we deem something to be a threat. But again, we'll continue to work with the local host nation authorities there.
Why not shoot them down, she says. I'm not going to get into force protection measures, but we always maintain the right to defend ourselves.
Why did they even bother? Why don't they just say to the journalist, fuck off, We don't give a shit about you. You're in our way. Mind your own business. This is a police state. Haven't you learnt that by now? You're wasting your time. If you don't move, we're going to bloody arrest you and send you to some Alpha Centauri. It's farcical because people vote for the system. The institutionalized thinking of the public appalls me. And as it happens, I said to you some time ago, after realizing how deep this subject is, I suddenly realized that the expression ignorance is bliss is actually something I think to aspire to nowadays.
This is the red pill, blue pill thing in the Matrix. I wish I'd have taken the blue pill.
Oh, God. If only I didn't know all of this stuff. And there's a lot to be said now for people who just go about their lives blithely. It frustrates the hell out of you and me.
Yeah.
But actually, there's times when you think...
I know.
My cousin Angela, she's a good example. She's just, perfectly content, perfectly happy.
I envy them in some ways.
Things don't trouble her. So why should we be upset with them because they're okay? Sometimes knowledge is a burden.
Well, it is a burden. Not sometimes. I think knowledge is a burden.
Yes.
But it's our responsibility for the short time, I believe, anyway, that the short time that we get to live here, to know what reality is or to understand what it is. Not live in Father Christmas land. There's a point where you get to a certain age and you say, look, there isn't a man who turns up and comes down the chimney every year because we haven't even got a fucking chimney. I don't want to believe that anymore. But there's adults out there, millions of them, that choose to not believe in Father Christmas, but I use it as a metaphor.
Are you telling me, Gary, that Father Christmas isn't real?
Oh, God, I fucked it up for you, haven't I?
Gary!
The trouble I've got into. Sorry, John. And you were going to leave the whiskey and the cookie out, weren't you, next?
My 4-year-old daughter sussed that out, when she was 4. Because we saw on one Saturday afternoon towards Christmas going shopping, she must have seen 3 different Father Christmases in different locations, and she sussed out it wasn't real from that age.
I told my son, 4 years of age, he came to me, Aaron, and he said, is this Father Christmas geezer real? And I said, of course he's not. It's Coca-Cola invented him from the. I had death threats from other parents knocking at my door. We're going to you've taken away my child's innocence. And I can understand you want to create the fairyland, blah, blah, blah. But then my daughter went to school when she was 11, first a day in high school, came home and said, thank you, Dad. I said, what's that for? She said, there's a girl at school today who absolutely still believed in Father Christmas. And everybody just ribbed her, and her life is now a misery because her parents have maintained that.
I feel sorry for her as well, But
anyway,
so these issues, whether it's politics, whether it's economics, whether it's food, so many people just aren't interested. As long as they get through their week, as long as they whatever. So we have to be careful with we can't be judging those people either, just because we've got all this enthusiasm.
No, I understand that.
To learn. And as a result, we want to share that knowledge, but there's a lot of people who don't want to know that knowledge. So, leave them. It's not a problem.
But you see, if here's the catch, as far as I can tell, right? Because I'm quite happy for people to believe whatever. If they want to believe they live on a flat Earth, or whatever it is.
Well, excuse me.
If it doesn't affect anybody else, then fine. But if we live in a democracy, so-called, which I don't believe we do, but if we live in a democracy where if everybody had a consensus view about what was going on, it would change reality for everybody for the better. I.e., we wouldn't be living a lie. We wouldn't be wage slaves. Every year, we're the same age, John.
Yeah.
We've listened to politicians year on year say to us, "There's a crisis, but if you vote for us, we're going to sort it." And year after year after year, decade after decade, the crises get worse. They're never going to be a problem. We're now in the potentially World War III, pandemic, economic collapse. These bastards haven't done anything to change the world for us.
No.
So. You say to them, oh, well, they're printing money. Oh, I don't want to know about that, as you said, economically. But if they did embrace the truth and did say, hang on a minute, yeah, you're right. Like, for example, the recent thing with the pandemic, there were people who were saying, I've got concerns about this this medical intervention, that it might cause side effects. Shut up, you're a conspiracy theorist. It turns out it was published today, and it's been published in several high level, that it has caused. Well, those people wanted to inform the public, journalists as well, so that they can make decisions which would be of benefit for them.
Yeah.
And benefit for the greater society. So if it was a matter of going, look, if you want to believe in Father Christmas, it doesn't affect me and it doesn't affect reality, fine, you believe what you like. But if their belief, they're holding on to their closed mind, does affect other people and it does affect reality and it does affect our children and our grandchildren, then they should fucking grow up and wake up and know. That's my take on it.
Yeah. Trying to understand the thinking of society is a very complex issue.
Right. I want to jump to another clip. Change the subject quickly. This guy, he calls himself Geeks Vanner. Seems quite smart, and he's got a couple of clips here where he shows drone technology, military anti-drone technology, and a link up with a UK company. So let me just play that one, because this is relevant, I think. And then I want to finish with two clips that come up this morning. One that you sent me of this huge, whatever it is, flying through the sky in New Jersey and Bedminster. Let's have a look at this Geeks Vanner guy with the anti-drone.
On the topic of drones being flown over USAF bases here in the UK has raised a lot of questions from viewers. One main question has been very helpfully explained by one of the security contractors who work with the UK military. You might have seen in the news recently that small numbers of British troops have been deployed to 4 USAF bases here in the UK. The reason? These units operate a highly sophisticated system to detect, track, and potentially, under the right circumstances, take control and defeat the drones that are being flown. Recent advances even allow them to track down the pilots. Leonardo have taken to their UK social media to report that their counter-drone technology, under the umbrella name of Falcon Shield, is being used to assist base leaders in assessing and potentially defeating the threats experienced over the past week or so. The Air Force here in the UK have been developing the kit in partnership with Leonardo for some time, and it is primarily used for the security and protection of military forces and bases, but also to protect critical infrastructure and even for public safety. The kit being deployed by British troops to the USAF bases is quoted as being called AUKUS, a version of the system that has recently added a new system which is called, wait for it, Ninja. It stands for Negation of Improvised Non-State Joint Aerial Threats. That rolls off the tongue, doesn't it? Ninja definitely sounds cooler. This part of the system is able to identify targets up to 4 miles away using a very high resolution thermal imaging camera. Ninja can identify something is a drone and even what type it is. And yes, the system can work in daytime and nighttime.
This company, Leonardo, have deployed their highly sophisticated kit to the US bases in the UK, which can detect and identify pilots of drones from 4 miles away with highly sophisticated thermal imaging technology. It can take them down with their laser zappers or whatever it is, and they've been working in conjunction with the military for some time. This technology was developed after the Gatwick incident, which was an incident then not an incident, and so on, some years ago. And so this raises the question, doesn't it? I mean, that last interview, the journalist asked the Pentagon spokesman, why don't we shoot them down? Well, we reserve the right and la-di-da, there's no threat, la-di-da. And then this guy shows us sophisticated technology that can track them. They're saying that, because people have raised the question, why don't you follow them? Why don't you follow them to find out where they're coming from? Why don't we put our own drones up there and follow them? And why don't we use our technology to track these things? We've got satellites, we've got this, that, and the other. How could we be faced with this situation? Here's the question. How can we be faced with this situation where for 3 weeks or more now, almost a month, if you said 16th of November, these things are prolific, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of them, for many multiple hours over very sensitive areas, we've got all the tech and the kit that could do something about it, and they're going, we're monitoring it. There's nothing to worry about. So it's quite reasonable to then go, I'm calling bullshit. Yeah. And then that opens the door, doesn't it, to conspiracy theories and speculations of all sorts.
But it's why I'm pleased that we've seen all these people on board. The mayors and the governors, they've all seen these fucking things with their own eyes.
Yeah.
Right? Until you get that level of authority, as it were, witness.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the fact that clearly we still don't know means they damn well do know. The mayor doesn't know, the governor doesn't know, maybe the FBI don't know, but somebody bloody does. I cannot believe that they've not captured one.
No. Well,
I cannot believe that they cannot track them to their operators, if that's what they are. Yesterday I saw a video, again in New Jersey. There was loads of them in the sky. I think it was a speeded up one. But they all seem to be coming up from behind the woods.
All right.
Well, why don't you go and flip and look for them behind the woods?
Send someone over there. Yeah.
Why? Listen, it doesn't make sense when they say they don't know.
Right.
Any police investigation, and these ones, it's not like they're hiding. They're in full sight. So what is the difficulty in following them, grabbing them? Don't the police have drones?
Well, the other thing is that Wiltshire is our military area, right? We have all of our military bases. We have a security, RAF security and provost thing. There are apparently underground bases all around. At the very least, okay, if you think about how much fuel, petrol, diesel, the military uses on a daily basis, right? There are fuel lines running all under the farmlands, all around these areas that supply the military bases. That's a security risk. If a terrorist, that we've been on the war on terror for so many years, terrorists would come to that area and they could seriously damage our military infrastructure with those oil lines and so on. So that raises the question: well, these areas must be, monitored for those kinds of threats. And we're even told that one of the reasons why they put the kibosh, one of the theories for the government or MI5 or the whatever putting the kibosh on the crop circle phenomenon was that when that big formation appeared in 1990 that brought thousands of people there, it was a security risk because there could be a couple of terrorists mixed in amongst the bunch. So they put a D notice on it and said, let's quell it all to stop these people coming here because this is a military area. And we don't. That was one of the theories. They thought, that's perfectly reasonable. Well, if that's the case, on the one hand, they must have all of this kind of sophisticated technology to be able to monitor our military installations. But we're being told, on the other hand, here we can't catch anybody that's flying all this stuff over our nuclear bases, and we're supposed to believe it. This is the problem, isn't it?
Well, so in relative terms, what is going on in New Jersey or what was going on in the military bases in UK, it's exponentially even more ridiculous.
Yeah.
You can see these things. How they make the crop circles, how crop circles are made, we don't know. Right? We see a crop circle, it's not flying around in the sky, it's there.
Right.
Okay?
Right.
It doesn't make it simple, but you know what I mean.
But there has been an aerial component connected,
yes.
Not all the time, but with the crop circles. There's people have drawn that, and that's why the UFO community
and stuff.
Right.
But what's going on now defies. It's the same two questions. Not only what the fuck are they and where they're from. That's two questions.
Yeah.
But why haven't the combined might of the military industrial complex, whatever the expression is, this is just it's farcical, it's a joke,
right?
And I'm not saying these things are UAPs.
We don't know.
They're UAPs in as much as that they are unidentified.
Yes,
but I am astonished. Whatever they are, we are powerless to do this. I wouldn't want them flipping flying around my house.
So,
I'd be trying to swat them.
Well, yeah, I know you could see from that journalist that gave the interview the other day that, you know, they're flying over my house. I want answers. But there's a couple of things I made notes of earlier, right? For possibilities that we could throw out there for people to consider and ourselves. Could it be a fake invasion where the government are going to say, oh, yeah, we've kept these alien things secret from you for years. It's the way that they give us disclosure, right? We've kept it because really we've known there's always been a threat from these blokes because they want to stick things up your jacksie and look with a torch and have a good look up there. So, but now we can't keep it secret from you anymore because they're flying all around. So we've got to lock you all down, right? That's one theory.
That occurred to me. You mentioned that earlier today, and I'd previously 5 minutes ago thought, oh, drones, the new COVID.
The new COVID.
What a good excuse to lock us all down again,
right.
Because
yeah.
I am convinced that during that period, governments absolutely relished the power they wielded over people.
No question. They went against all medical advice. We
absolutely loved their dictatorial role.
And they said they were going for science, but they went against what science told them. You're going to get more mental health, you're going to get cancers, people that aren't going to be treated. There are going to be more deaths as a result of the lockdowns than there will from the pandemic. Now we've got the figures. True. They ignored it.
And this is the problem. This is why people who are accused of being conspiracy theorists.
Yeah.
This is why people who speculate on what is going on is because there is so much going on by the powers that be, the powers of darkness. There is so much taking the piss out of the public, abusing the public for their own monetary, for their own self-interest. Again, back to the fundamentals, the prosaic, as I've learned that word recently.
Yes, great word.
Follow the money.
Follow the money.
It's all about money and power. And
I don't know. There's so many. My teacher used to say there's only so many paintings you can hang on the wall, right? At the end of the day, it comes down to control and real power.
Yes, I mean, we don't understand people's desire. Those people, those psychotic people at the top who have this absolute obsession with control, we don't understand them because we're not like that. We don't have those motivations and impulses to dominate people. So that's part of the human condition as well, because ever since the beginning of time, there are people that take over. Then there's people who are sheep. Then in this country, people they love queuing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
The people, this country, for those of you that are not in the UK, I have a motto about Britain, which is a nation of frightened sheep queuing up to go into a waiting room. You know, the people at the airport who rush at every stage, only to know we've got to sit there and wait for the next stage.
I landed back in the UK because that's something else we should mention. Whenever I leave the UK and come back to the UK, I go via your house, don't I? I stay. So you're my place where I always get the point of departure and return. Anyway, I don't know if you remember me telling you this story, but I flew back from somewhere and I'm standing at the elevator waiting to go in with my trolley with my suitcases on. And, you know, there's a bunch of people, we're all queuing up nicely, waiting for the doors to open. And as the doors opened, I think he was a Middle Eastern gentleman with his wife, rushed in front and just pushed into the elevator, right? So then we all sort of scurried in with our trolleys and get in there and we stand, the doors closed. And I looked this man in the eye and he looks at me and sort of smiles. And I said, "You're obviously not from this country, are you?" And he said, "No, why do you say that?" And I said, "Because you don't understand the concept of the British queue." And everybody in the elevator went, Right, so we've got to wrap this up because we've been bleating on for ages. I want to play these last two clips. One is the one you sent me this morning, which I think actually got you a little bit worried and a bit nervous because it's a big...
This was last night. I was having a bad one, and last night I saw two in a row, and I started flipping, getting the chills.
And that's a relevant thing, isn't it, to bring up? Because one of the lines over the years has been the government are protecting us children from getting too scared and worried about what's really going on. So they're keeping the truth from us to protect us all and let us live in our little bubbles where we wouldn't get frightened. So that's a relevant topic of conversation that's come up around all this disclosure and suppression of information. But let me just play. I'm going to share the screen again and show this clip of this big. It's a biggie, isn't it? It's a big whatever it is. Let me do that.
This is the one going behind a house.
Yeah.
A lot of smoke and fire. We're on the highway, and out in the distance we see all these lights going off. And there's some smoke over here. Oh, right! Yes, YouTube magic right there. The field's on fire. There was like a craft that crashed out of the sky. It was crazy. We don't know what's going on.
Okay, that last clip was this alleged crash of one of these things. Where there's smoke and fire, and this guy's saying that they've seen these drones, and then one of them's crashed, and then now that's being denied and saying no, it hasn't happened, and there's nothing to see here. But that's footage of, it could be footage of a field on fire, or something else happening. We don't know because we haven't seen a UFO come out of the sky and land and crash into the field, as it were. And even if we did, someone would say it was CGI'd. But okay, the first clip, it looks like a big plane. But the speed it's going at and the lights are irregular again.
Well, if you don't mind me saying, I've never seen a plane displaying those kind of almost party lights.
No.
You do see the flick of the green and the red or whatever it is up there, but it's up high. That thing, which is possibly the height of the houses or the trees, was very wide, covered in lights. I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if it's a mechanical thing. But what's it doing there? What is it allowed to do? If you can come up with ordinary evidence to show that these things are fucking drones and that it's a lunatic hobbyist group, it's a this, fine. Just clear it up for me. Clear it up for me. Or else it's something we don't know.
Right. And
it makes no sense. Sorry, it makes no sense that the authorities are claiming such big ignorance over this.
I agree. And that's it, isn't it? That's the theme of this whole discussion that we've had, really, is that there are the answers that we're being given by the officials are insufficient, to put it mildly. The explanations about, there's no threat, don't worry about it, they don't justify how they would be able to say that sort of thing. Some of these things do look like aeroplanes that are covered in Christmas lights, as it were, and that may have been one of them. But if that's the case, then are the government deliberately doing that for whatever agenda they have, or the deep state, or whoever else we want to talk about? There are so many questions that are being ignored, and then but there are also so many questions that are being put on the table for us to have a conversation about and say, what the fuck is going on? On that note, John, go on. You got something else?
Well, this is the most dodgy times I've ever lived in.
On so many fronts.
On so many fronts.
We've got the Ukraine war and a proxy war with America and the UK firing missiles into Russia for whatever reason. Syria's kicked off, right? The Israeli conflict that's been going on for the last year is expanding into Lebanon and now into Syria and so on and so forth. Biblical wars, end of time stuff is happening with Vimanas coming out of the sky. Interesting times we live in, mate.
Do you know? And I say I'm not a nutter.
I think these days it's going to. I think it's going to
turning me nuts. Maybe
it's worse. It's turning. I think it's turning a lot of people nuts. I think we're going to see a lot more people sort of freaking out over this. And again, that might come back to the reason why some of this stuff is kept from us, because the War of the World scenario, where everybody started running and throwing themselves off the bridges because they really thought there was an alien invasion.
Before you go, you can just check on that ridiculous prediction and what's supposed to happen 39 days after that interview, because it seems almost like it's happening.
I tell you what, I'll watch that and we'll do another show on that. We'll do another show on that.
Thank you, Gary. It's been an absolute pleasure.
My friend, until the next time.
Nice one, Gary. Bye.
Cheers.